Our next story tonight is one you will not soon forget. It raises serious questions about the quality of medical care the military is giving the brave men and women who put their lives on the line for us. It's the story of how one young Marine was treated, and we think a story that's really important for you to see. Our national correspondent Byron Pitts is here with more. Byron?
Katie, this is a story about one Marine who served his country with honor. One Marine, one family. What happened to them has happened before. You're looking at Carmelo Rodriguez dancing with his niece last year.
She don't care, she's loving it.
By all accounts, this 29-year-old loved life, his family, and the Marine Corps. An artist, a part-time actor. Here he is with actress Katie Holmes in a scene from the TV series Dawson's Creek. And this is Sergeant Rodriguez with his Marine buddies in Iraq in 2005. A fit, gung-ho platoon leader.
It's not fair.
This was Sergeant Rodriguez when I met him. That once buff physique whittled down to less than 80 pounds in 18 months by stage 4 melanoma. Surrounded by family, his 7-year-old son holding his hand. It was the sergeant's idea we meet. When Sergeant Rodriguez was in Iraq, military doctors, he says, misdiagnosed his skin cancer. They called it a wart. 8 minutes after I met Sergeant Carmelo Rodriguez, as we were preparing for an interview, he died. At his family's insistence, we stayed. With his body in the next room, we sat down with his relatives. Why have us here for such a painful moment for your family?
This was his wishes, to have this known, because he don't want no other soldier to fight for his country and go through what he had to go through and be neglected.
He said, don't let this just be it. Don't let this be it. Fight. That's what we're doing. We're going to fight for him.
Their fight is over what's known as the Ferries Doctrine, a 1950 Supreme Court ruling that bars active duty military personnel and their families from suing the federal government for injuries incidental to their service. In other words, unlike every other U.S. citizen, people in the military cannot sue the federal government for medical malpractice. You use the word neglected. Explain.
When he enlisted in 1997 for his initial medical checkup, physical, the doctor documented that he had melanoma, but never told him or never had anybody follow up on it. And that was back in 97. If we would have known that in 97, he'd still be with us.
Here's that medical report. The doctor notes skin as abnormal. In further details, he describes it as melanoma on the right buttocks. There's no recommendation for further treatment. 8 years pass. Sergeant Rodriguez is in Iraq.
If a birthmark is about that big and about that, it has a raise like that in pussing, right, just to let it go and say that it's a wart. Who does that? How does that happen? I just don't understand it. It's not right. It's not right.
29 years old. You know, and all his life is good, never into drugs, never into partying, never served his country faithful, served the Lord faithfully, and he held on positive because he's a soldier, he's a warrior, he's a Marine, he fought for his country and also for his family.
According to a veterans group that tracks soldiers who are misdiagnosed, there are hundreds of cases across the country. 25-year-old Air Force Staff Sergeant Dean Patrick Witt was one of them. Witt's family says his appendicitis was repeatedly misdiagnosed. After emergency surgery, Witt ended up brain dead. He later died. Military law expert Eugene Fidel. You talk to military families who believe they have a malpractice case against the military, and you tell them what?
It's very, very difficult when I get these calls, and I get these calls repeatedly. Over the course of the year, I probably get one every 2 months. These people have to be made to understand that the law simply doesn't permit them to bring a lawsuit. They can bring a lawsuit, but their lawsuit will be a complete waste of time.
We showed Attorney Fidel a copy of Sergeant Rodriguez's medical records, military emails. Sergeant Rodriguez's commanding officer, Lieutenant Colonel B.W. Barnhill, quotes a military nurse who called Rodriguez's case, quote, a major screw-up. He should have been immediately seen and the wart removed, and we may not have gotten to where we are now.
When he's in Iraq, and the doctor says, have someone look at it when you get back to the States in 5 months.
If a member of my family had a comparable condition myself, and somebody said, I'm sorry, no one can see you for 5 months, I'd fire the doctor.
He didn't have that option.
No, he didn't. I hope members of Congress are watching this show.
Because?
The law has got to change.
What's the military's response?
I'm not prepared to discuss the Ferries Doctrine today.
3 weeks after our initial request, the Pentagon granted an interview with Navy Captain William Roberts, medical officer of the Marine Corps. But Captain Roberts wouldn't discuss the Ferries Doctrine or Sergeant Rodriguez's case, saying it was under investigation. As for how many cases, like the sergeant's...
I do not have those numbers at all.
Because those numbers don't exist, or you can't provide them?
I certainly don't know them.
If Carmelo Rodriguez was a civilian, his family would have the right to seek damages.
I'm sorry, but I can't comment on the legality of that type of redress.
But for the Rodriguez family, the best they can hope for is a final report.
They will get a final report if they ask for it.
Because he was a Marine, Sergeant Carmelo Rodriguez received a military funeral. But it was an honor his family paid for. As it turns out, Rodriguez was forced into retirement due to his illness. Since he was retired, the military was no longer obligated to pay for his funeral. His son, Carmelo Rodriguez IV, was shown the gratitude of a grateful nation, an American flag, and 55% of his father's benefits.
And for those who say when those young men and women sign that line saying, I turn my life over to the U.S. military, they willingly give up some of those rights.
George Washington said that when a person puts on the uniform, he does not cease being a citizen.
Carmelo Rodriguez was a citizen, and to his family and friends,
He's so cute, Poppy.
he was so much more.
Byron, that is so heartbreaking when you see a young man like that, so vibrant and courageous.
Oh, yeah.
Not to mention that other young man you mentioned in the piece. What happened to this doctor who apparently knew that he had melanoma but never communicated it to him?
Sure. Well, we sought him out, unable to reach him. The military wouldn't make him available. Not only did he not tell Carmelo Rodriguez, that information apparently was never passed along in his medical report. So when he went to the doctor in Iraq, no one knew, or at least no one checked his original medical exam.
It's really outrageous, isn't it?
A lot of people we talked to inside the military said, quite frankly, they're not surprised. They've heard about these kinds of cases over the years. And people I've talked to inside the service and outside the service say it's time for the Ferries Doctrine to change.
And I'm sure you're going to get a lot of reaction to this story as well.
We hope so.
Byron Pitts. Byron, thank you so much.